But if it does it for more than a few seconds, it then it will make somebody else the host. Yeah. Oh, good. Oh, good.
Before
Oh, good.
she left, I was saying, I can kind of feel myself going into this weird place, and not weird,
Yeah.
but just really, low energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I keep saying, like, it's like a forced pause. Generally speaking, it's interesting because I've thought a lot about it this week. Joe and I were talking about it yesterday. Typically, when I have gotten into, when I've been in these low energy spaces, I tend to associate that with kind of slipping into almost a depression kind of state. And then, eventually coming back out of it and then going back into these moments. And this time around, I was saying to Mom, I'm feeling all these really similar feelings of just kind of not wanting to do anything. I'm like dragging myself to do something. And my tendency is to get really frustrated because I feel like I have a desire to get things done, but the actual act of doing anything is just like dragging myself through quicksand. And I think in the past, I have tended to see those points of lowness, of low energy, of difficulty doing anything, of, lack of motivation as a bad thing, and just, like biding my time until it's over and I can get out of it and okay, great, back to normal. And this time I have really been trying to just kind of lean into the pause and to see it as a pause instead of something bad or something that's holding me back, but to see this as, okay, this is my opportunity to rest, to pause, to just kind of be attuned to what's happening. The whole expectation conversation has come up a lot of, I have this expectation of being this certain way, feeling this certain way. That's not what's actually happening right now, and that's why it's bothering me. So just let go of the expectation of, how you think it is supposed to be. Just be with what is. And so I've been really working on seeing it as just a pause and attuning to that from a more appropriate perspective and treating it as rest, a rest period, and not fighting that. Just okay, just go with it. Just rest, just take a break, which has been really interesting because I think I'm discovering that a lot of the feelings that a lot of the negative feelings that I think I've had in the past in these periods of time, not all, but a lot of them just come from me not wanting to be in that state or feeling like there's something wrong with being in these lower energy periods. And I get so frustrated that, well, no, I don't want to be in this, and I want to be able to get this done, and da 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 da. And I don't want to be lazy, I don't want to be unproductive, whatever. And so I get all of these negative emotions because I feel like there's something wrong with me, or like I'm not, some particular expectation that I have or other people have with myself. So trying to let go of that and just go into the pause and just see it as a pause, look for the value in that, has really changed a lot of my typical experience, I think, in these kinds of down times.
Oh, sorry. I was listening. I was listening. I put
Okay.
it
I
on
just
mute
got
for a
I
second.
got the end
What you were
what
saying is the real key here. It's this feeling of alienness, right?
yeah, yeah.
Right. But that feeling of alienness, of wrongness,
Mm-hmm.
of contrary to ourselves. This is the thing that's hardest to deal with. That we start to feel wrong about ourselves,
Right.
and we start to question all that. Yeah. So, and that's no good. We question ourselves, and that's just we have to avoid that. To say this is an anomaly, and it will pass. It's external to me. It's not me. Um, that's really essential. Really, really essential. Yeah, very important. Very important. It really makes me happy to hear that you recognize it. That's half the deal right there, right?
Right. Right.
That recognition of it. Yeah.
Right. For sure.
Very, very, very cool. Very, very cool. So the other thing is, you've been also running at a pace. You know what I mean? So sometimes it's just the body, the self saying, "Hey,
Whoops. I just lost your audio there. I don't know why. Yeah, I can't hear a thing. Whoop.
hearing you."
There we go. Now it's back.
Okay, okay. Yeah, they did an update on Zoom and it just messed things up this morning. I couldn't log in and it was just a big mess. So
That's no good.
it's also saying that it wasn't quite doing what it normally does. So
Yeah. That's weird.
anyhow, what can we do? What can we do? Um, so let me put that video off. Leave that here. There we go. Bro.
Whoops. Now I lost the audio again. I can see your mouth moving, but I don't hear anything. There we go.
Yeah. Well, I've got the video on the laptop. Yeah, I put the video off on the phone because for whatever reason, the other headset that works with the computers has just decided to stop working, and I researched every possible thing. It's not seeing the little mini USB, the
Right.
Nano, and on this one on the laptop, it's got in the device manager. It's got that when you show hidden devices, it shows the wireless headset. But uninstalling it, doing drive.
Nope, not cut out again.
I mean, I suppose I could use the audio without the headset, but yeah, it's not as nice.
Yeah, that's really weird.
Anyhow.
Like coming in and out. I lose you for a few seconds and then it comes back.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah. All right. So let's try something. Hold on 1 second, Erica. I'm going to mute on here.
Okay. I see lips moving, but I can't hear anything. So weird. It's lighting up like it's recognizing your audio, but I don't hear a thing.
You see now, it is hearing both though.
That's so weird. Yeah, I can hear the echo, but I could not hear your thing from your computer. That's really weird.
Yeah. So, now it's not recognizing the microphone on the built-in microphone. The speaker worked. You were on speaker for a while, but it didn't recognize the microphone.
Lovely.
So,
well,
Yeah. So that's maybe the problem now that I think of it. That I might need to update the overall sound drivers.
Right, right.
Yeah. For whatever reason, they might be interfering with us. So yeah,
True.
makes sense. Okay. Something to try at any rate. I got lots of stuff to do. Computers. It's like, come on, I don't have time to mess about with this. I spent a whole day researching the other thing, or 2 days. Yeah. I know. What can you do? What can you do?
True.
Yeah. For whatever reason, the internet's pretty stable, and the phone is on the same internet as the computer, but it's not as stable. I don't know why.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I had a nano a Bluetooth thing. I might have to go and buy another one, and I was so careful to guard it and treasure it. I even taped it to the laptop.
Right.
Yeah, it's disappeared. So
Oh
then I can
no.
use the Bluetooth. Yeah, I can use the Bluetooth with the computer. So uh, it's peculiarities.
Yes.
Donna, oh, call you Donna, Erica. Who knows? Who knows? I don't know. It's very strange. So, and I had a hell of a time getting that to work when I first had it, but it did. I had the phone working with Bluetooth with the computer. No, and I looked everywhere. Only so many places it can be,
Right.
and I just puzzles me how these things can go. Actually, I thought I'd left it in the computer because that's a very safe place. Because when I unplugged all the stuff to pack it away, it's so tiny at the back of the computer, and the USB are slightly recessed. It's a
Right.
perfectly safe place. But no, so I don't know.
Well,
Yeah, strange
it's
but
probably
true.
up
Strange but
somewhere.
true. And then when I do find it, and I'm going to probably I'll buy another one. I'll find this one.
Right. It'll turn up as soon as you buy
Yeah,
something else.
yeah. But it's okay. I can use two of them. So use
Absolutely.
one on the laptop, one on the thing. So that's all right. Yeah, I like this headset though. It lasts a long time. It doesn't clamp on my head very well. It's too loose, and I
Oh,
don't know. I think I got a bit of a cone head on the top, so you know it has to be right on the top of the cone over there.
right.
But it'll stay 6 8 hours on a charge. So that's pretty
Yes.
good.
Yeah.
I always had this little sort of joke. The cone heads come to the airport, and there's a road construction, and they all overjoyed at the road construction, and like, why are you so happy with the road construction? Say, well, look at how the greeting they put out. It's like the royal carpet, all those cones. They're very impressed by the roadworks. I
Yes.
think it's just for them. Yeah. Brilliant, brilliant. All right. So, we did do some more sessions and modules.
I tried.
Uh, I tell
Um,
you what, Erica-Jayne, I'm a completionist, and there's very, very few books in all the thousands of books that I've read, um, which I calculate, by the way, to be about 6,000, I think.
mhm.
Uh, anyway, there's very few that I didn't finish.
Right.
Almost never. I, I don't know why. I just kind of like to finish them.
Right.
So, but I do feel that in the case of PSP, we can come back to it later if we want to. But I'm
Right.
I'm very keen to do the hearing and helping program.
Yeah.
Very, very, very keen. So, and I do feel yes, the boringness of it or the repetition is valuable because we want to master it. But
Right.
I also don't want to lose interest and momentum. This
Right.
is more important between the two. And things will come up all the while. They're going to come up continually. We're going to get back to it. So, maybe what you can do is just go through it, and don't worry to do notes or tasks.
Right. Right.
Just if not, read through it just to have the information in there, and go through it with the intent not to remember it, but to look at it and see if anything strikes you as, oh, in
Right.
whatever. If
Yeah.
it does, you say, oh, that. But if it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, okay,
Right. Right.
keep going. I tell you, oh, when it does the oh, then you stop.
Right.
Then you do a repeat back and a takeaway and make notes.
Yeah.
But I'd be surprised if there is much that way. Maybe in the last two chapters, There's a
Right.
kind of a summation, and there's a positivity and a little different connectivity there. But other than that, I would say this would be a project that you can say, okay, I'm just going to go now, move through, looking at the O, and then get onto the hearing and helping. I'm very, very, very keen to do that with you.
Yeah.
And Donna's going to be doing it also.
Oh, good.
So this will be very nice to have that. Yeah, have that as a simultaneous thing too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'm very excited about that. Very, very excited. So this is very cool. Because it's a big deal, and I'm going to be doing it differently with you. Well, and also with Donna now, because when I first thought of this, when we said to do it, because the way the program is set up, um, it is set up to accommodate a range of perceptions on it, or at least perspectives on it, and perceptions and connectivities. But I want to very particularly, as the Monas project, do it in a very particular way.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm excited about that. I'm very excited about that. So yeah, different way of relating to ourselves. And it actually comes into play with what we were talking about earlier,
Mm.
this connectivity between us and ourselves, to
Right.
really see this as a relationship, and to treat ourselves as if we are in a a client participant relationship, or
Mm-hmm.
sorry, participant facilitator relationship.
Right.
I try not to be a client, but so yeah, yeah, it's a good perspective to have on ourselves, and even more particularly to see that there isn't there's the two sides. Okay, let's say we just say left brain, right brain, or whatever, forebrain, back brain, but there's I don't know, it's like 11 different brains, and they aren't always, some are just isolated. They're not always have an opposite, but forebrain and rear brain, definitely left brain, right brain, which aren't true opposites, but they do different things, but they're definitely not opposites. At any rate, to see that they're interchangeable in this relationship, that we are going to say, okay, we've got a participant and we've got a facilitator. Now, let's just say technically it's A and B to start. A
Right.
facilitator, B participant. The moment that sharing has taken place, the polarity flips, like in electrons, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now B becomes the facilitator and A the participant.
Right.
But it's this. So right, you start in one, and there's the learning that goes, and then this one goes, and now it goes this way.
Mm-hmm.
They kind of frog each other all the time, and they basically need to catch up on the other one. So the participant becomes the facilitator, and vice versa, in a continual ratcheting and leveraging against each other.
Right.
Yeah. And how cool is that? Yes.
Absolutely.
So we use ourselves to gain perspective on ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Through that perspective, we both learn, and it's not just one stays that way. So it's very cool to look at it from this point of view. But the whole program, thus, is about this conversation with ourselves, not
Right.
just hearing ourselves, but sharing with ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And this is very cool. It's both. It's both making space for ourselves. Doing all. It's a marvelously fantastic program. It's really cool. Really cool. And it really, yes, wave impeccability was huge for Sue, but the hearing and helping changed everything that she was doing, like
Right.
in the
Right.
practice, and shifted a whole perspective, a whole understanding, and it changed everything for her. It gave her an ability to deal with herself and the world. And this is very important because, without that, wave impeccability can be a little intimidating.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So very powerful, very necessary in a way too. Very necessary. So exciting stuff. Exciting stuff. So
Absolutely.
I'm keen to move to that. So
Right.
but like in the new year, especially, or sooner, we can do this next time if you want. Even depending how
Right.
quickly you want to go through the rest. Or Erica, truly, only because I feel you share my completionist views, did I recommend going through that. If you want to just skip it entirely and go directly to the hearing and helping, more than welcome.
Right.
More than welcome. There's not a necessity for it. I feel like both you and Joe have extracted more than enough out of it that you have a deep innate understanding. Now it's just kind of fiddly tweaking, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's mastery. of the issue.
Right. Right.
That's a personal issue, how much mastery you want in it. Me, I like to go to the nth degree. I like to go a little past what is necessary so that
Right.
I can have an expertise in it. But that's me. It's not necessary. That's my peculiar quirk. Definitely not necessary. Absolutely not. So, yeah. And I don't want to lose the energy or the interest momentum, because we
Right.
got lots of exciting stuff to do.
Yeah.
Lots of exciting stuff to do.
Yeah. I mean, this week, I think and last week as well, part of my struggle has just in general been that kind of low energy. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
not necessarily,
Motivation.
not necessarily the material, just
Motivation.
kind of, yeah,
Yeah.
just struggling with
Yeah. Yeah.
getting
Yeah. Yeah.
brain power going.
Yeah. Yeah. And
But
that's another reason why I'm recommending this, that when we get a bit stale, a replacement is very cool. It's very
right,
cool, because it's a function of the energy. But now we say, how can I leverage my low energy? Oh, something new and exciting,
right,
shiny, new shiny,
right, right. True.
Yeah,
Very
yeah.
true.
So we do leverage that, and PSP is a repetitive program by design. It's
Right.
meant to be.
Right.
We are going into nuance and the same thing from different angles. It's the same thing every time from different angles. Once you get the basics of it, it's pretty easy. Very
True.
cool, very cool, very exciting, very exciting.
Um,
Um,
I like that.
so yeah, and again, I'm of course, if you when you do shift, for Joe to also then keep the same thing that he's doing,
right.
go through it. I don't think it's going to be quite as simple as
Mm,
it is with PSP. Yeah, I know for a fact it's not going to be.
right.
The exercises are quite a big deal in the hearing and helping. And they the sessions, you can't do them by session. You have to do it kind of uh, by task, because it's so much. There's so much moreness to it that the sessions are very long,
Mm,
and I had to break it up into basically like 3-4 slides and then tasks. 3-4 slides, then tasks.
right.
So yeah, it's a whole different experience. It's quite
Interesting.
a big deal. It's quite a big deal. I tried it initially. You'll see there's a thing where it's like you get like a dozen tasks or something,
Oh
and it
boy.
was it was very stressful. So I said, all right, let's try a different way of doing this.
Yeah.
So what was that in PSP? I don't know, but anyway, either way, it's a different experience. Yeah, very
Yeah.
cool. Very
Interesting.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, yeah. I mean, there's just PSP is a sort of a necessity. This is a joy. It's a
Yeah.
joy.
Well, good. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Look
yeah.
forward to
It's
it.
magic stuff. It's magic stuff, and
Yeah.
it really shifts us into a different world. Uh, you know, yes, I want to know how to deal uh, with the superiority paradigm because it is so prevalent. However, it is prevalent, but it's not. Uh, what's a word where you say it's everywhere?
Oh, I don't know. I was gonna
Better
say
word
all.
than saying it's everywhere. In other words, not everywhere, but it's not. It might be prevalent, but it's not in every instance. You do find pockets where you don't
Right.
find this,
Pervasive.
and this is what we want to prepare ourselves for. Where you do find that pocket, to have the ability to exist in that pocket also,
Mhm.
right? Because we say, oh well, this is easy enough. No hierarchy stuff. This would be great. But just because there's no hierarchy doesn't mean we know how to function in that system. Right?
True. Very true.
I mean, look at when you just because there's no windows
Whoops, I lost you.
doesn't mean that you can operate in a Mac. Well, okay, Mac it's very similar. It's that you can operate a Linux computer, right?
There we go. I think I just caught up to you.
Yeah.
Anyway, just because you know how to
I'll
use Windows doesn't mean you can use Mac. Is that what you're saying?
or Linux, better example.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, Mac and Windows not all that different, but yeah. So they still essentially both are Windows. But my point is that we assume that the absence of something enables us to function, like the absence of hierarchy. This would be great, but that doesn't mean that we know how to function in that system
Right.
at all.
Right.
And we want to look for these sophisticated mini cultures and be able to recognize them. Yeah.
True. True.
So this is, with the way we are going to be doing the whole hearing and helping program, it's a whole different logic. I mean,
Mm.
yes, it connects to leadership. It connects to being in a workplace. When you apply these in the as a replacement for the for your leadership, the usual hierarchy leadership. Oh my goodness, it's transformative.
Mhm.
So it's not just, it can be used in many different ways, and we're going to explore all those different ways. So
Interesting.
because again too, coaching, what's the difference between well, at least the coaching that we talk about in the hearing and helping program, and parenting,
Mhm.
capital P parenting,
Right.
capital L leadership, no difference, same thing. It's all the same thing, right?
Yeah.
So when you look at it from that angle, if we look at hearing and helping beside a communication, a profoundly sophisticated communications program, it's also a leadership and a parenting program,
Right.
and it is also an internal uh, um, uh, psychologically balancing program, a psychological
No, the audio cut out again.
very much.
There we go.
And yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited. Sorry, I don't mean to go so much on it, but I get passionate about it. So
No, no, it's
it's a
all
cool
good.
deal. I've been waiting a long time to do this, and that's why we did PSP first. Because if we did the other one first, we're never going to come back to PSP.
Right. Right.
Yeah, yeah. So it has to be. Has to be.
Makes
I've been
sense.
waiting patiently. I've been waiting patiently. So I'm with you now. It's like, all right, patience. Hell with that.
I'm looking for.
Yeah, yeah.
Um.
I just don't want you to lose interest.
Right. Right. I got
Yeah.
um last week. I think I had gotten one of the. I think
Real quick before you start on that, how things with Kathy?
good. Good. We are meeting this week, and then we're taking a break for Christmas. Um.
Oh, good, good. And
But
she's good. Kathy's good.
she's doing really well. We
Okay.
we continue to
Okay.
have.
Yeah, and just tell me too. How those work. I don't know what day Christmas falls on.
I don't either. Actually, I
Oh,
have to
sorry.
look to see what it falls on this year. Uh, Friday. It's on a Friday. Whoops. I think I lost your audio again. Maybe. Now the audio looks like it's trying to come from your computer and I can't hear anything. I can't see what that says. Oh, connecting. Okay. Does it say connecting? I think it says connecting. Oh,
That's just saying connecting
there,
for whatever reason.
there we go. Got it back.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Why it varies, I don't know, but
yeah,
I'll get it sorted out. I'm
Christmas,
working on it. So
Christmas is on a
I got,
Friday.
say again.
Christmas is on a Friday. Did you hear it? No?
Ah, okay, okay, very good. So long weekend. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I did. I did. Christmas on a Friday. All right, very cool. All right, let's hear where you're at, Erica-Jayne. Let's hear where you're at. I am keen to hear.
Okay, so I got um one I think we went through everything on this session. Yeah. Okay, so we left off on module, wait a minute. No, module 12, session 3, which was implications. And my repeat back from this one was BSers and BMNs take advantage of our reluctance to acknowledge unpleasant truths in order to perpetuate their nonsense undisturbed. And I only got one of the exercise tasks answered. But we can talk about the other two, I guess. But the one that I got answered was, what prevents us from dealing with manipulators appropriately? Answer this as fully as you can for yourself and in general. And so I said, yeah, it's an interesting question. And by the way, I think the audio, I think there's a lag in the audio. So if you start talking and I'm still talking, it's just because I haven't heard you yet. So just keep going and I'll catch up. So my answer was, for me personally, the biggest hurdle is conflict. I've always had an extreme aversion to conflict, and it's been something to avoid at all costs. Although I have a new awareness about conflict, I think this remains one of the most challenging things for me to change habitually and from a feeling perspective, not just thinking. I know this is a challenge for others as well when dealing with manipulators, especially, quote, good people who have inappropriate humility. Interestingly, though, while these types of people make obvious and easy candidates for manipulation by BMNs and BSers because of their conflict avoidance, people without a fear of conflict or inappropriate humility also get sucked into a BMN's web. In these cases, I think the root cause of not being able to deal appropriately with manipulators is still a person's desire to be good, just in a different form. I think in these cases, a person may be driven by not wanting to question a person of authority, or someone they respect, or someone they've been told to respect or trust. It could be that they believe the manipulator is right, and by siding with them, their rightness and therefore their goodness is increased. In any case, I believe it is our misunderstanding of rightness and goodness that prevents us from appropriately dealing with a manipulator.
Will you read the last sentence again, please?
Yeah. Where does it start? There we go. The last sentence is, in any case, I believe it is our misunderstanding of rightness and goodness that prevents us from appropriately dealing with a manipulator.
That's a huge statement, at least for me. Right. Our misunderstanding of rightness and goodness. It not only prevents us from dealing appropriately with BMNs and BSs, but also with everyone else.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
One of the most potent bulwarks and counterventions to miscommunication is the insistence on good intent. Inevitably, when I've gotten into problems, stresses, arguments, disagreements, people upset with me, whatever, always it's a miscommunication issue.
Right.
And once you start mishearing somebody, inevitably you start mishearing their intent.
Right.
Once you mishear the intent, it's all over.
True.
That's it. That's the end of the deal then.
Right.
That's where things go awry. Now you feel the person is deliberately being mean, nasty, horrid, rude, whatever. Right. And once you believe that, well, then you get schism. And you get worse than schism. You get resentment, anger, annoyance, botheration, hurt, all of the stuff. And this is, we'll get to it when we do the new nobility stuff. This is a big deal. This is a very, very, very big deal. So, but one way we can do this.
I lost your audio again.
Intent to goodness. It may be a misapplied, sort of a bit of a misanthropic goodness in the case of BMNs. Okay, you believe dominance is good. But you don't need to do this on me. I'm not challenging you. You can be whatever you think is appropriate for you, but I'm not going to play that game.
Right.
And that's very helpful, So just to leave them. And you see this in your one chicken, right?
Right.
Yes, she sort of allows herself to be pecked a bit. She doesn't let it go too far, then she'll push back, right?
Right.
So they know where they stand with her, and she sort of indulges those that don't know how to control themselves. And this is an important point. So sometimes we say, okay, BMN, do your thing, feel like you're being dominant, and even to others, whatever. They see where you at. They're not fooled by it. They know, and they
Mm.
also know that when they push too much, then you push back a little bit.
Right.
So this is a powerful thing. When we can, with BMNs, we don't have to do much to actually demonstrate this. Force of awareness is usually enough.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Just having self confidence, in other words, and not having a fear of conflict. If it happens, it happens. That's it.
Right.
Um, this is important because if you have a vulnerability that you're always looking to avoid, they're going to make every effort to stimulate that in order to exploit, because
True.
they know which way you're going to go. You're predictable.
Right.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
very
Very.
interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But we can, when it comes to conflict, though, and this applies to many things, we can engage in conflict without that typical negative mood association with conflict. In other words, we can conflict a position using like real cold scientific logic and reason. I'm completely saying going against what you're saying, but I'm not saying I disagree. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm simply saying yes, where I'm coming from, and this is what
Right.
I believe to be the solution, the issue, what works, and what you say may or may not work. I don't know. I'm not commenting on that. It could work in addition to what I'm saying. I don't know.
Right.
I
Right.
don't even mention it. I just say yes, my position, and I lay it out. But I do so very coldly, very reasonably, very logically, without any passion, emotion, because they pushing vibe all the time. And this is a very hard thing to deal with in conflict, because when you see somebody's got this patience and the deliberateness and the thoroughness,
Mm.
and you're talking to an accountant going through the accounting books now, how do you argue with this? You can't really.
Right.
So it's a very powerful form of confrontation. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but it's confrontation without confrontation.
Right. Yeah.
So this is a powerful thing, for me to see, to have this ability to confront without confrontation.
Right.
Ridiculously powerful skill. Yeah.
True.
And again too, so we want to label this something else, not to say I can confront the BMN, because confront is a charged label. To say I can deal with them in ways that to them might seem confronting, but not to me.
Mm-hmm. Lost
So
you.
this the same.
Oops. There
So
we go.
I can negate I can negate their problems by dealing with them in ways that they don't even realize they are being negated and thwarted and circumvented.
Mm-hmm.
Or if they do, there's nothing they can do about it. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
there are different ways to deal with it, to confront without confronting. I mean, there's no other way to say it really. But to desensitize that word and not make it such a stress point,
Mm-hmm.
right?
True.
There are many ways we can do it, and it's one of the reasons why passive aggression has come about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And there are times when being passive aggressive is absolutely appropriate,
Interesting. Yeah.
wouldn't you say?
I suppose. Yeah, I'm sure there are.
I mean, if somebody's really pushing it in a meeting and they're being really rude, and you don't get excited, you don't raise your voice, you do this, but you're putting stuff out there, and everybody knows you're not amused, you don't think this is cool, and
Right.
but you're saying it in a way that they can't really find any fault to it. You communicating your displeasure without confrontation.
Right.
Very powerful. Very
True.
powerful. Yeah.
Very true.
It's appropriate. It's appropriate. Yeah.
Yeah. Like it. Um, let's see. So I answered 2/3 of the questions on the on the next session.
Brilliant. What was the ones you didn't answer? I'm curious. Just
I might go to that one and do those, and then we can come back to the ones that
I see. I see. Okay.
the ones I didn't
Yeah.
answer were really just nothing like came to me right away, and I would like come back to them, and just wasn't somehow it wasn't connecting at the time. So we can come back to those. But
Bloody hell. Sorry, I got one fly that decides to come in here.
no.
And it was sitting on the screen to the door, and I opened it very quietly, but it doesn't fly out, it flies back in again.
Of course, yeah. Oh, by the way, I haven't shown you. I don't know if you can see this. A little bit. Can you see our snow?
Wow, wait, let me make you full screen. I love snow. Wow, nice. Sorry. I don't know what I did now. I muted you by accident. Dang it. I'm trying to pin you and I muted you by accident. So there we go. Oh, fantastic. I love snow. Wow, look at that. Brilliant.
We are supposed to be getting more this afternoon, but a lot of that has actually melted. It snowed on Sunday, and then there was quite a bit, and then it kind of melted yesterday, and then we're supposed to get more today, but we'll see.
Yeah, it's interesting that for you the snow was a day earlier than for Donna and Sue.
Oh yeah.
You know, they got it Monday and they're getting it tomorrow. Yeah. Very interesting.
Let's see. Okay, so whoops. Module 13, session 1. Oops, I didn't put session 1. Oh no, I did. Never mind. Module 13 is malignant manipulation, and session 1 is manipulating niceness. And my repeat back takeaway from this session was bullshit manipulator narcissists seek out people who will fall for their tricks and cons and then use these people fully for whatever purpose they see fit. And the first exercise question was connect adamance to not being vulnerable to manipulation via leverage of our loves and what's important to us. What do we need to be adamant about? And I said, I think we need to be adamant about our independence of being.
Yes.
And about others' independence of being as well. Coming to terms.
That is a powerful point. Sorry to interrupt you. Sorry, because these are like profound points. So you can't kind of string them together. I need to absorb them. That's a huge point. To be adamant about our independence of being and that of others.
Right.
And this is, to me, that's the noble ethical thing to do, but it's problematic, Erica.
Interesting.
It's problematic. Not everybody wants the stress that goes with independence of being. They want the more energy efficient, or not energy efficient. Sorry, the less energy requirement modality of just following.
Right. Well, my thinking on this one was, and I went into it further down, was the concept of so yeah, I explain it in my answer, but
Sorry.
Basically the idea was specifically from the perspective of, it says connect adamance to not being vulnerable to manipulation via leverage of our loves and what's important to us. And for me, the thing that stuck out there was our tendency to like from an independence of being perspective, our tendency to gravitate toward people who are most like us. So a manipulator, knowing this and understanding this, could pretend to be interested in what we love or what's important to us, and use that to gain our trust, our appreciation, our attention. And so the sticking adamant about our own independence of being in there was sort of an obvious one for me, but the idea of being adamant about the independence of being of others as well, was the concept that just because someone is different from us in terms of their likes, their desires, what's important to them, what they love, doesn't mean that they're any less trustworthy, that they're any less valuable to us, that they should be less interesting to us, and vice versa, that people who have similar interests, loves, whatever, should be trusted or valued or connected to more. So it's important to consider the independence of being of others from the perspective of not everyone is like me and not everyone should be like me, and I should see the value in that instead of gravitating just toward people who are like me.
Yeah. So in other words, the celebration of difference.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. 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 And celebrating difference, but you are saying those hyper attentive to the celebration of difference. Yes.
Yes. And I guess for me, it's maybe a sort of a specific aspect of celebration of difference, that not only to celebrate the differences in other people, but to also be careful that we don't, I don't know, maybe like overemphasize the value of people
Yes.
who are
Yes.
not different to us.
Yes.
So don't
Yes.
get caught up in immediately trusting, connecting with, gravitating towards someone just because we believe that they're similar to us.
Yeah. Yeah. And not to make the profound mistake of saying or assuming because there are some similarities that they will be generally the same.
Right.
Not so. Not so.
Right.
Not so. Yeah. Very, 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 very cool point. Wow, I love that. I love that nuance, sophistication there. It's very cool. Very, very, very cool. Yeah. Actually, to me, when somebody's clearly different, this is fairly easy to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
But those that are pretty close in similarity, I make this mistake actually sometimes. In my when in my personal relationships, I see a massive similarity, and I assume it goes all the way.
Right.
It gets me to trouble.
Right.
Gets me into big trouble.
True. Yeah, very true. Well, and I don't know, somehow I feel like for me, when someone is vastly different to me, it's easy, and not even just easy, but I think it's almost a tendency to sort of focus on the differences and kind of assume that this person is clearly very different from you. You are almost naturally sort of more on guard with this person in terms of paying attention to their way of being and what they're about and whatever.
Exactly.
Because it's so different, and you're like, okay, I don't know anything about this, I don't understand this way of thinking, and so I'm going to be really vigilant and really pay attention. And when we're with someone who we think is very similar to us, I mean, for me, I think my guard kind of tends to go down. I sort of immediately feel comfortable. I start sort of trusting right away. I feel I'm kind of lulled into a sense of comfort. And that
Ah,
that could be okay if the person's intent to goodness is there, but if this is a manipulator who knows that this is our tendency to feel comfortable with people who are similar to us, and so they are falsely portraying themselves as similar to us to gain our sympathy and to get our guard down, then that can be something really dangerous to miss. So I think that was the big point for me here of why, independence of being is truly about independence. It doesn't really matter about difference, similarity, whatever. It's focusing on who you are and not getting caught up in seeing reflections of you in someone else and
right,
assuming that that person's intent is the
right,
same as yours.
right. And not to succumb to wishful thinking either.
Right, right.
Yeah.
For sure.
And just see the green screen is so ugly. So I thought, let me put something on it. And I don't have many pictures on this on this computer. Um, so I said, well, the mind map I saw it there. So all right,
I like it.
yeah, it's kind of cool. So
It's funny.
yeah, let me see if I can zoom in a little bit. Yeah, I don't know if I can or not. But yeah, this assumption of similarity is a big problem.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. One that gets me into trouble all the time is just the assumption of the ability to be completely honest.
Interesting.
You know, okay, when it comes to a professional relationship or work or whatever, yes, I'm always, but I don't expect this of others
Mm-hmm.
necessarily. I make allowance for appropriateness. Not that I assume they're dishonest, but that they don't necessarily share everything.
Right.
That they hold stuff in reserve. So it's not about honesty; it's just about fullness of sharing. Let me put it
Mm-hmm.
in that case. Well, it also goes to honesty, in this that some people aren't, but they might be honest, but they're not always self-honest. And when you get into real depth of conversation, the two that difference starts to become apparent, right?
Right. Interesting.
So I just assume when you get to a certain level of sharing and closeness, that those completely fall by the wayside, right?
Right. Right.
And you can talk about anything, and the honesty. So if something comes up that's problematic, we can talk about it, no problem.
Right.
But this is not so. For
Yeah.
some people, they can't easily talk about things, and I don't mean, I don't know, whatever, things that are typically just private stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean stuff that they would like to talk about, but
Mm-hmm.
just struggle to.
Right.
Let's just say relationship with parents.
Right.
Sometimes they can't talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing. Well,
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. That's an important
yeah,
point. That
yeah,
and
yeah.
that doesn't mean that their connection with you is any less
Correct.
real, or that that doesn't have to be a black mark on your relationship. It's just that
Yeah,
this is something that they're
yeah,
not able to talk about, and that's okay.
yeah, yeah. And love of truth. This is something too that we assume, we take for granted,
Mm-hmm.
that it's something that's just a part of us. And we assume that when you really connect to somebody and they're sensible, they want more, etc., and that they have the same love of truth. No,
Mm-hmm.
not so. That's a big point too, and it's a peculiar thing that you would think, but why not? Just some things turn your world upside down sometimes, and you're not ready for it right at the time.
Right. Right.
So we have to make that allowance and be aware that what is obvious to us now wasn't always so for us. But it's hard to get back into that non-obvious state. But
Right.
we have to make this allowance for others. They don't see it yet, and it doesn't mean that they're stupid or behind or anything. They're just not seeing this particular obviousness. Very difficult to do, but it's something we've got to keep in mind. Yeah.
Right. Right. For sure. It's very true.
which brings us back to trusting the intent to goodness of others.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever we get confounded or confused, we say, I trust the intent to goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
True. Very true. Yeah, that's big. That's really big.
Oh, music. You're way too sad and melancholy. I'm like, man, I'm feeling my heart a little down. What's going on? It's the music again. Wow. And it's pulling at my heart. Dang. Can you hear it?
I a little bit, just barely.
Well, it's very soft, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, just barely. That's funny.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I don't want to put. I know I like to always have music on, but I don't play it too loud, so it doesn't
Right.
interfere. You know.
Sure.
But yeah, always got to have music playing. Yeah,
Yes, I agree.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
let's
This
see.
expectation of similarity. Wow, what a thing to be on guard against.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
kind
And
of opposite logic, right? You wouldn't think similarity would be something you'd have to be on guard against.
I think when I was answering this question, it reminded me of from a couple sessions back the idea of like reserving our friendliness and um, kind of openness to connection until we really have a chance to understand what a person's intent is, and that
Yeah,
this is a perfect example of that, that just because someone is being friendly to you and maybe saying all the right things and seems like someone that you might really connect with from a place of
yeah,
positive
yeah,
intent, don't
yeah,
just see that on the surface and immediately assume that they have a good
yeah,
intent.
yeah,
Wait
yeah,
and
yeah,
observe
yeah,
that
yeah,
until
yeah,
you
yeah,
can really determine that for yourself.
yeah, yeah, yeah. There's a reason why there's an engagement period in marriages,
True.
right?
That's very true.
But the folk was wisdom, you know. But I mean, it's very applicable here, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So we tend to just have this when it comes to marriages. We apply this engagement period, but I find in friendships it is particularly necessary.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing, you know. It's as necessary as in a marriage because they both personal and intimate relationships. So
True.
why one and not the other?
True.
So yeah, yeah, it's important. It's important to understand this and be aware of it. Very, very, very important. Because I see people get into trouble. Well, obviously, people getting into trouble when they're married too soon. We all know this. Okay, occasionally it works out, and we tend to remember when it does work out
Yes,
because we're romantics at heart.
I know that all too
But
well.
but with friendships, I see this on a very regular basis. People get in trouble because they don't have an engagement period, right?
Mm-hmm. True.
Yeah,
Very
three
true.
months, 3 months, Erica, 3 months. That's the magic time period.
Okay.
Yeah,
I like it.
yeah. I saw this with employees. They'd be on their best behavior, boy, but after 3 months, they can't hold it anymore.
Right.
So, I don't know scientifically how much this is actually valid. It's pretty anecdotal, but it does seem to be that it was that way. I mean, we made a point of looking at it very deliberately, and looking at it and testing this out. But still, it's small sample size and all that. Um, but yeah, definitely seems to be because people can't maintain things, and useful to really hold that, and also it just gives your thoroughness the
Mhm.
chance to really kick in and be sure, and you get that initial flush of excitement kind of wears off, and that also takes a little bit of extra time sometimes. So yeah,
Right.
it's just good. It's good to to have that. That's why patience is such a superpower. In relationships, it's fantastic. I mean, besides its normal uses, but
Right.
for this
Right.
especially,
True.
it is very powerful. Very, very powerful.
Very true.
I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 windows open. It's fairly typical. Don't have Facebook open on the computer, which I'll do now, but it's at 39 degrees.
Wow.
Yeah. At this point, it would be up there, 69, 70, even higher.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's phenomenal. I
Yeah.
mean, it wouldn't even get down to 39 degrees with no windows open before. So
Great. That's great.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I am paying attention, but it's just while I'm not doing anything, I'm just observing it. So
Right.
yeah,
Good.
being scientific.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Um.
Oh, I know who this is. I was trying to remember who this was singing. It's that Hawaiian guy, big
Oh,
boy.
yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
I know who you're talking about.
Israel, somebody or other. Yeah, yeah,
I can't remember his name, but he's really good.
Israel. His first name is Israel. I don't know, Israel something.
Uh, Israel Kamakawiwo.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Israel something.
somewhere over the rainbow is the one he's really known for.
Yeah, yeah, that's what he was singing, somewhere over the rainbow. Yeah,
Yeah, that's a great version.
yeah, yeah.
Kamak-
I have a very eclectic station. If you're into eclectic music, yeah, kama kawiwo ole,
Whoa,
kama kawiwo ole. Uh, anyway, sorry, we're saying about just that time period to let things settle and sink in a little bit.
mm-hmm.
So just not so fast, not so fast. I just think this is something in general, in life in general, actually, that um, uh, we tend to rush a little bit more than we need to, and if we can curb that a little bitty, all right, I shouldn't say curb that, leverage that
Mm-hmm.
enthusiasm appropriately, to say yes, I can be enthusiastic, but that doesn't mean I have to rush. It
Right.
doesn't mean I have to be preemptive, and doesn't mean I have to overlook things. To do both, to maintain the eagerness and to say, I'll make a decision on it later. I don't have to make a decision to get married now. I can have all the enthusiasm and put it all into the engagement period, but I'm
Right.
not committing, right?
True.
Yeah, yeah.
Very true. Absolutely.
Fantabulous,
Let's see.
fantabulous, fantabulous,
So
fantabulous.
the next question I answered was, how do we deal with innocent, earnest, good individuals who are so eager to be good and helpful they are easily manipulated? And I said, excellent question. Not sure I have a great answer for it.
Yeah, yeah.
I said, I would say that I think following these people around and trying to protect them from manipulation is not the best route. Neither is telling them at every opportunity how they are being manipulated or trying to
Mm.
control their behavior. So, my guess is that a good strategy would involve helping these kinds of individuals recognize manipulation for themselves, perhaps encouraging them to think for themselves, to question their beliefs, etc. Basically, everything that this course is covering.
Yeah, exactly. Can you read the last part again, please?
Perhaps encouraging them to think for themselves, to question their beliefs, etc. Basically, everything that this course is covering.
Yes, 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 yes. That's what you had me thinking there, and I went off into a thought tangent.
Mm.
Um, I love that. I love that. So the ways to help to help unawareness is through inadvertent learning.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's very powerful, because if you in a case like this, where you are popping a naivety bubble, and a gullibility bubble. Those are very dangerous to pop.
Right.
But at some point they have to. There's no way to avoid it because the it's it causes trouble, and especially when you see people are getting manipulated because of this. So I have found that uh, indirect sharing. In other words, I see somebody that's doing this, find somebody else or somebody in a story, and share the third party example. Yeah,
True.
and through that, um, now the person they kind of start to get a clue. And now they also get an understanding of what it is from the outside,
Mm-hmm.
right? And especially if you now say, well, what do you do in this situation? And now they are considering it. When they realize it's about them, they armed from both ends, as it
Right.
were.
True.
So then they have that ability to look at it from the outside as well. That's very important here. So, one of the biggest challenges of awareness, I've said this many times, is to dealing
Awareness.
with unawareness, and not only to understand unawareness, but in cases like this, and dealing with naivety and ignorance, very problematical.
Right.
Very, very, very problematical.
True. Absolutely. Yeah, this was interesting. I mean, this question made me think a lot about my mom and my grandma, and I think that's why I started my answer with, here's what I think is probably not appropriate to do, because I think I saw my grandma do that for virtually the entire time that I was privy to her and my mom's relationship. I think my grandma was trying to protect my mom by going around and sort of pointing out all of the times when my mom was being naive and being manipulated or whatever, and then trying to control her behavior, trying to save her from all these different things, and that clearly did not work. And so
Mm.
really the only thing you can do, I think, that's appropriate is help the person come to that conclusion on their own, basically.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, inappropriateness is quite a devilish thing, right?
True.
Really making me think now.
What are you thinking
Just
about?
how to deal with naivety and that how to deal with naivety and innocence. Um, it's difficult. It's really difficult. One way I find is to be um, mm, kind of non-committally honest,
Hmm.
in the sense that, and to be honest in a very particular way. So just you saying it like you saying, well, you know what, it's kind of it's clear outside. There's no wind. It's kind of cool. You're just stating things completely in a no big deal way, even if they are a big deal way, a big deal. And this, yes, there might be some shock to the system, but that queuing, I've seen this happen many times. And then it just gets absorbed like, oh, wow, okay. Oh, the whole world has suddenly changed, but okay, whatever. We have
Right.
to, in other words, trust the resilience, the innate resilience of the individual. And
Mm-hmm.
when you do that, you're basically queuing to say, I can share this with you, even though it's completely radical. You can deal with it, you can handle it. And that alone, that queuing enables the dealing of it, the
Right.
dealing with of it. Quite something. It's quite something.
True. Yeah, that's interesting.
Did you ever watch that show, the Chris Isaac show?
It sounds familiar, but it's not ringing
Yeah,
any
it
bells.
was it was an interesting show. It was fun. It was pretty good actually too. Mhm.
No, I don't think so.
I don't remember what it was called. I think it was called the Chris Isaac Show. It's like on
Yeah,
Showtime or one of those.
yeah,
They moved it onto other networks eventually. But it was a very interesting show. If you like his music too, it didn't always show too much of the music, but
right.
very different show. It's very different.
Interesting.
Cool. Yeah.
Very interesting.
Sorry, the music is grabbing me for whatever reason. It's not very loud, but it's really touching me in a big
Yeah,
way. I don't know why.
I like it.
Yeah. Mhm. You listen to a range of music, right?
Oh my goodness, yes. I do. I have very, very varied interest in music.
So did I ever share the my
I think you did, and I tried to find it and couldn't find it.
so I'll share the link again with you. I'll do that right now.
Yeah, I think I clicked on the link or something and it
Right.
wasn't working somehow or something. So
Okay. The key to understand with Pandora is if you do listen to somebody else's radio, it will stay their radio until you do any thumbs up, thumbs down, or add artist.
right, right.
Then it becomes yours. Yeah.
True.
Anyway, keep going. I'm getting distracted. Sorry.
No, it's all good. That was the end of
What was the last thing you were talking about?
well, that was the end of all the questions that I got through.
Oh,
Um, so
I want to hear that ones you didn't. Yeah.
yeah, so we can look at the ones that I didn't answer. So from this session, there was another question. At the very end of the session, there's a quote that says, "If you can't see the sucker at the table, it's you." And that was from Gus Hansen, a poker player.
Yeah.
And so the task um, related to this says, relate the poker quote to dealing with BMNs. But since we're looking to see the game, how can this also be used to positive advantage with everyone else who is not operating from untoward motivations? And that second
Yeah.
part of it was what I was like, I don't know. I don't know. So was going to come back to it and didn't get
Okay.
to it. I mean, to me,
This.
the
Oh,
first
go.
part of that, right, is very obvious. Like relating that quote to BMNs
Hmm.
is super obvious. But the whole second part of that question is not obvious at all and very nuanced. So,
Yeah.
so that's what
Yeah.
you're
So relate that to the innocence question.
right.
You're in a room full of non-BMNs, different people,
Mm-hmm.
really different, but they're not BMNs,
Right.
right? And you don't see the innocent at the table. You don't see the naive, the unaware at the table. Well, that's you.
Right. Right.
Right. So if we think of it in that sense, this is very useful, right?
True.
Yeah. To say, hey, I'm the one who's the unsophisticated one here. I'm the unaware one. I'm the innocent one here. Oh wow. Ah, cool.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, we do have to be careful of this because, the other part of the nuance here is that we don't always want to default to an evaluative,
Mm-hmm.
comparative mindset, but it is appropriate in some circumstances. If you are truly the innocent or the naive one at the table, now you can be naive just like in a technological sense. You sit down at the security conference in your old job, you go to Vegas in the big conference, and you say, "Whoa, you know what? Who's the one who doesn't really know what's going on?" And you don't see anybody. Say, "Wow, okay, I might be that one, but I also might know what's going on." It's not
Right.
necessarily, but it could be.
That's
And this would then, okay, since I'm the one who doesn't know what's going on here, I'm a bit clueless. I'm the innocent one. Then I'll just keep my mouth shut and listen.
right.
It prevents you from being inappropriate. Let's put it that way.
Matt,
So there's definitely a value to it, in a sense.
yeah, I think one of the things that stands out to me is that that logic. I mean, I think that's a really useful idea to have in the back of your head in terms of getting an outside perspective on yourself, but I think it also falls into the category of if it's not black, then it must be white kind of a thing.
Mentality of opposites,
Yeah.
exactly.
Like, okay, maybe there's not a sucker at the table. Like just because I don't see
Exactly.
one doesn't mean that there has to be
Precisely.
one.
Precisely.
So,
Precisely. Precisely. Right. Right. And that's exactly what I was saying. Exactly. I mean, you just say exactly what I was saying. Exactly. Thank you. It's very important. It's very important to say, it doesn't necessarily mean there isn't one. There
right,
is one. There might not be. So yeah, but it just makes you a little bit aware of what's going on. It just makes you that question to, in case there is a sucker at the table and it is you,
right,
to be aware of that.
right.
Right. So if we can throw that out to say, no, look, yeah, everybody's on the same page. We're all sharing. This is fantastic.
Hmm.
I mean, certainly when we do the Zoom sessions, this never applies.
Right,
Right.
right, for sure,
And that's very cool. That's very, very, very cool.
for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, one of the other questions from the last session that I didn't answer was, what happens, what actually happens if we just say F it to looking silly and do something which usually might have made us feel foolish or less, but now don't care? Does it change how we feel? And then do we actually look as silly as a result? Actually apply this in some way or relate where you now do what you couldn't before because of how
Mm,
you felt and what enabled you to be different.
mm, mm.
So that was a big question. I didn't immediately have something come up, and so I was going to come back to it.
I can rephrase that in a nice, succinct way. Does deliberate foolishness change the perception of the foolishness in question?
Right, right, right,
Right. So is deliberate foolishness typically actually perceived as foolishness?
right. Um,
Is it?
well, I think one of the interesting things that stood out to me from this, and I kind of started to mull it over, but I didn't have a good concrete thought on it, so I didn't. Um, I wanted to come back to it. Was the point of, so what happens if we say or do something silly that might have made us feel foolish, but now we don't care? Does it actually change how we feel? And then do we actually look as silly as a result? And that part of the question was what I was really thinking about was, does it actually change how I feel?
Mm,
If
mm,
I truly don't care, then does I mean, if I have reached a point where I truly just don't care about looking silly, then it probably doesn't change how I feel, because presumably I'm already feeling fine with it. But if I'm doing something silly and I haven't really reached a point where it doesn't, I still feel like it's gonna make me look foolish or whatever, but I decide to just, for whatever reason, I'm like, whatever, I'm just gonna do it. Then does it change how I feel?
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if it does or not. I mean,
I see how you're taking it. Yeah,
I
yeah.
assume that it
You've already decided how you feel, so yeah, it doesn't apply.
right. Well, but I mean, I don't know. I sort of, I was starting to go into the nuance of that, I guess, of, I feel like it would change how you feel to a certain degree, but is it the act of doing
Mm,
it? Is it the act of the courage that you got up to just do it? Is it that makes you feel different? Is it doing it and other people not reacting to you the way that you thought that they would, that
mm.
changes the way you feel? Does it actually change the way you feel? um I don't know. I don't know. There's a lot going on there, but I think,
I'd say all of the above.
right.
I'd say all of the
I
above.
agree. I agree. And I think it's probably
Yeah,
situational.
but
But
to various degrees, right? Yeah.
right. But I think, I mean, I guess so. Deliberate foolishness is deliberate foolishness. Did you say is deliberate foolishness actually foolish or perceived as foolish?
Does it change the perception of the foolishness? Yeah.
I would think so.
Oh,
Um,
I absolutely am convinced it changes it.
yeah,
I mean, think back to your student days, where people did stupid things all the time, right?
right,
Deliberately,
right.
right? Now you see sometimes, at parties or even just, in the I was going to say playground, but I don't know what you call it in universities, in the
Oh,
open areas,
right, right.
the common areas.
Yeah,
You see people doing stupid stuff all the time, right? Deliberately.
true.
Now, sometimes you'll see them be all awkward about it and they'll be feeling foolish, and others just, okay, let's say streaking. Yes, some streakers that, and you can see they're inhibited and they just feel foolish. Your perception of them is very different to the ones that do it with aplomb.
Right,
You think they're both foolish, but there's a very distinct difference between the two,
right,
between those who are deliberately foolish with abandon and
right,
those that are deliberately foolish and feel foolish,
right.
right? So the deliberate foolishness, it's about not feeling foolish, and that changes the action. So if you, well, now we're getting sophisticated here. If you are deliberately foolish, then be deliberate fully. So that if I'm going to be foolish, I'm not going to feel foolish. I might struggle with this, and I'm going to feel foolish despite my intent not to feel so. However, because I'm focused on the deliberate part, the moment I start to do it, I own it.
Mm-hmm.
And I may initially feel foolish despite myself, but very soon that changes because I'm doing it deliberately.
Right.
So essentially, what we're saying here is if you do something deliberately foolish, the problem, of course, is not the foolishness, but the subconsciousness.
Right. Right.
When we are deliberate and we stick on the deliberate part, maintain that awareness, then the subconsciousness goes away.
Right.
Yeah, I'm being foolish. Okay, so what? You know, I choose to be foolish, which leverages subconsciousness. Right?
Right.
At least to a certain degree. Sometimes we do things, no matter how much we try, we can't get rid of feeling foolish.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Sure.
Or it takes a lot of practice and inuring us to this through repetition.
Sure. Yeah, that's interesting. It's a very um loaded question. And there's a lot there. There's a
Uh,
lot to that
yeah,
question for sure.
yeah. It's useful to think about. And it brings up that word inure, very particular word. I don't often get a chance to use it, but yeah, it is utterly appropriate, right? To acclimatize through repetitive use, to
Mm-hmm.
become comfortable through repeated exposure to uncomfortableness.
Right.
So that deliberateness is the key. And being aware that we're doing it deliberately and being aware that it's foolish. And because we're choosing to do it deliberately, it's okay, which makes it less foolish.
Right.
So it's this kind of a infinity loop that spirals and leverages on itself. Again, what we're doing is sophisticated self-leverage, right?
True.
Yeah, we like that. We like that. Very powerful.
Absolutely.
Very cool. Very cool.
Okay.
Um, this skill, by the way, is part of our capital P practice.
Mm-hmm.
Capital P practice absolutely is the willingness to engage in deliberate awkwardness, foolish discomfort,
Mm-hmm.
etc. Knowing that in doing so deliberately, it changes the feeling, especially initially, and there's a very rapid period where just the persistence, the practice, which is persistence, changes that initial feeling, and pretty soon it's like, oh, this isn't as bad as I thought it was,
Right.
and then it goes away. Yeah, and even can be, oh, this is actually fun. Yeah. Yeah.
True. Very true.
Once we acquire this particular skill to implement despite reservation, we are empowered to essentially do anything.
Mm-hmm.
To implement despite reservation.
Right. Right. That's big. Yeah, that's really big.
Wow. I never expressed it in that particular power conception,
Mm-hmm.
but practice is implementation. Capital P practice is primarily implementation without this, or sorry, not without implementation, despite reservation.
Right. Right. Right.
Yeah, that's
Absolutely.
a skill.
That's very true.
That is a power skill indeed, right?
That is very true. Yes, absolutely.
But what's an enormously empowering and enabling and expanding power skill? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
Think of it from the other side. Observe people who are reluctant to do, where you know that if they did do, it would be beneficial.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just do it, and you'll soon see it's not the big deal that you think of it
Right.
is.
Right.
You
That's true.
can't convince them sometimes, right?
Right.
But you know that if they were to just trust you, they would soon see the truth of your point.
Right. Yeah, that's very true. That's a really powerful conception.
Yeah, I'd
Implementation.
like to think of this more from a communication point of view. How do you share to make the point, to overcome what sometimes is a deep instinctual barrier
Mm-hmm.
that can only be overcome by experience?
Right. That honestly, that right there is the root of a huge portion of, I think, my reservation about childbirth. I
Yeah,
feel like the
yeah,
only way to really
yeah.
get past this truly like instinctual reservation about this is to just do it. But
Right,
that, that has been the challenge of facing that for me. How
right,
do you how do you conquer that
right, right,
without
right,
just doing it? But when you have
right,
this instinctual reservation of, I
right.
don't know if this is a good idea, it's tough.
But only if you really want kids.
Right, exactly, exactly. And I think,
Don't go and get over the fear just because you want to learn to get over the fear.
right, that has been a big part of um, my kind of understanding of that reservation, um, that Kathy and I have talked about a lot, is I think the value and
Right,
purpose it holds is to cause me to
wow,
really
right,
take a necessary pause to determine if having kids is what I actually want. So
wow, wow.
it's important.
Because that fear of childbirth might be a strategically powerful fear,
Exactly.
useful,
Exactly.
because because from a cultural point of view. Hello, whoever that is in the background there, is that Joe?
Joe, he's got his headphones on. It looks like he's on.
Ah, that's what I was wondering. I said, man, I don't recognize that hairstyle. Although somebody with the Princess Leia, but I didn't think it would be Joe with the Princess Leia. So, well, that'd be cute on him, I imagine. Yeah, well, he's got his headphones on. We can tease him a little bit without him knowing. Extra fun, extra fun. Uh, to not want to have children is one of the most difficult cultural perspectives and attitudes to have. So
Absolutely.
even if it's irrational, something like, oh, I've got this irrational fear of childbirth. Ah, okay, I understand that. Okay, it's acceptable. People
Right.
can accept you not having children. So it's a socially sanctionable or acceptable way to do something that is very, very, very hard to justify in many cases.
Right.
It's a good skill to learn how to say, this nah, it's not for me. Thank you very much. I
Right.
appreciate you doing it. I
Right.
think it's fantastic. But I'm doing my part to keep population under control.
Right.
Oh, okay. We need a justification for it, but still people will, So I'm just saying it's important to be aware of the deeper psychology. If
Mhm.
it is that, which in your case I could see as a child, as a girl, your deep consideration and care for others and not upsetting them, not bothering you, would manifest in something like this.
Right.
You have that strategic mind to do it. To just be aware, and then of course it builds on itself. It gets entrenched and it gets locked in.
Right.
So
And that's a big part of what Kathy and I have been working on, is getting to the root of the what the purpose of that was. And for me, what really came up was the purpose of that was to allow me to come to a true choice about children.
yeah,
And so, it's not this warning of, don't have kids, don't ever have kids. It's really make this a choice, figure out for yourself if this is something that you want to do or not. And I think that was something I told Mom a while back, that it's been really interesting for me as I have focused a lot more on that and sort of come to this understanding of this being a choice that I really need to make. It seems to be, and I'm sure it's not really, but it's interesting that on the surface, it seems to be a very unusual perspective. That there seem to be, basically, the vast majority of people are in two camps. They either really want kids and, either they have them or they're in some situation where they can't for whatever reason. This is causing them a lot of trouble. Or someone really doesn't want to have kids and they're just struggling to come to terms with that and to understand, how to navigate that. There are very, very, very few people that have voiced a similar experience of being in the middle and going, I really don't know. It could go either way and I'm not sure, and I'm trying to understand that. So it's interesting. I don't know why that's the case for me. I don't know why I'm in this really, seemingly unique situation. But that's been a big thing that's come up with me and Kathy, is that the one really valuable purpose of this fear of childbirth that kind of started this whole thing for me was it's serving the purpose of allowing me to truly come to a choice about this and not do something because I think I can't, or because, or to not do something because I don't think I can, or to do something because I think I should.
In the perspectives that influence here, would you say ambivalence is a powerful factor that needs to be taken into consideration?
True.
In something of this nature, if you're ambivalent, doesn't that say lean you actually towards one side? The mere fact of ambivalence is something to say,
it's interesting. I mean, I think on the surface you could argue that, but that's one of the really interesting things for me is I don't feel I don't feel that. I mean, I think you could argue that, but that does not hold true for me, which is interesting.
You're not ambivalent. That's the answer to that conundrum. You're not actually ambivalent. You have sufficient reasons to do either way, and both you would find joy out of. So you're not actually ambivalent.
Interesting.
Right?
I suppose that's true.
You just happen to nicely be in the middle. And I think we discussed this before. We get free choice from the universe, and you set up this intent to have free choice. And for me, when I have free choice, the way I resolve it is through paying attention to attunement.
Right. Right.
It takes care of the issue in itself. So.
That is really what led me to the point of finally kind of coming to this place of I'm choosing to not choose this right now because I don't feel like I have the necessary information. And so I'm trusting that, you know, when this is made, when it's appropriate, this is going to be made clear. And so I'm choosing to not choose until I get the attunement that I am looking for. So,
you know, lack of passion is something to really consider as well.
mm,
Right? There's no real deep passion for it.
yeah, I mean, we'll see. I'm still exploring it. So who knows?
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it.
Yet to be.
I have that same, you know, from a personal point of view. Usually people have a one way or the other. You know, they cheer for you one way. They say, well, if it's up to me, I'd say, you know, well, this way or that way.
Right.
Me personally, I think you'd be a fabulous mother. At the same time, I think you're fabulous not being a mother.
Right. Right.
And I see the benefits and the merits either way.
Me too.
And this is part of this being able to go either way. Wave impeccability is geared towards enabling us to have the tools to be appropriate regardless.
Right. Right. Absolutely.
So, sorry, in this instance, wave impeccability made it worse. Right?
That's okay.
In a way.
That's okay.
No, okay. That's the beauty of it, that you're okay with it, you know, and you're at peace with it. And with modern science, you have more time than previous, you know.
Right. Right.
I mean, I do believe the women having children in their 50s now, yeah?
Right. It's true. I mean, it's not necessarily recommended, but
No, not common, but
yeah. But it is possible.
My mother had my youngest sister. I think she was 40.
Yeah.
Maybe slightly over, but I believe 40. It was a big deal at the time. There was a risk involved, blah, blah, blah. She insisted to go ahead. But now, I mean, in your early 40s, this is commonplace now, right?
Certainly more so than it was back then, for sure.
I mean, it's not an oddity anymore. That's what I'm trying to say.
Right.
I mean, obviously, it's on the shorter end of the bell curve, but it's still within the bell curve. It's not an outlier. That's what I mean. It's moved from being an outlier. You know, over 50 is an outlier now, where it used to be 40 is the outlier. You know, so yeah.
True. Very true. Yeah. Very true.
Pretty cool.
I probably better jump off of here. I've got laundry that I've got to do, and
oh, that reminds me. So do I.
Yeah, I left my laundry. I did one load of laundry yesterday and left it in the washer all day.
I got so much clothing, I can go for a half a year without doing laundry.
That's the frightening thing, is so can I. And so when I get to the point where I have like no clothes left, it's really bad, and I need to do laundry really badly.
No, I've only got one load, so I'm good.
Oh yeah, I've got lots waiting for me, so I'm trying to psych myself up to do it, but you know.
I hear you. Well, okay, perfect opportunity. That indolence, right? Mm-hmm. That feeling that you were describing when we came on, we didn't name it, but it's kind of an indolence, yes?
Yeah, true.
Take that feeling and all the frustration, the stress, the impatience, the whatever, self-doubt, all that. Every time you load the washer, there goes the indolence, there goes the doubt. Right. So wash out through this, physically sacrifice those to the washing gods.
Right.
So, I mean, really do it as a little ritual. It's incredibly powerful.
I like it.
Now your washing takes on a bit of a meaning and purpose and significance. It's deliberate, transformative, yeah?
True. Very much so.
All right, go and enjoy your ritual.
Okay, I will do it. I'm going to throw a whole bunch of nonsense.
And give it a nice name. I'm keen to hear the ritual of whatever.
Okay.
You know, as you're doing it, think of a nice fancy ritual, mumbo jumbo name for it.
Okay, that sounds good. I'll think of something.
Beautiful. Oh, just love it.
All right.
Looking forward to more.
Yes, always. Yeah. Me too.
Very cool. Bye-bye, Erica. Bye-bye.
Bye, Sal. Thanks so much. I'll talk with you
always, always. Yeah. Bye bye. Bye bye. Bye bye.
Bye.
Oh, what magic.